Hello, and welcome to Of a Certain Age Living Out Loud. I am your host, Cody Maurice Doggett, alongside my partner in podcasting, Steve V. Rodriguez.
Hello,
And
hello.
hey, Boo. To-
Hi.
Today, we're talking all about travel. We're
Ugh.
talking about our favorite destinations and our dream destinations. Steve, what are some of your favorite places that you've been on vacation and the places that you like to go to travel?
Well, as many people know, if you listen to our other show, Tags Podcast, Puerto Vallarta seems to always come up all the time. It's just a place where you can be free. There, it's safe. It's LGBTQ
Yeah.
plus friendly. They've got gay pride there, LGBTQ plus pride there, I should say. And there's so many things to do. I also have benefited from the fact that my sister bought a condo there. And with that, is in a neighborhood called the Versailles. And I've gotten to know it's actually turned into something that was a travel destination
Hmm.
into somewhat of a second home. And in the area, Versailles, it's the food gastronomica area of Puerto
Ooh.
Vallarta. And you can find restaurant after restaurant, from bars to cafes to boutiques, and even you can get some Botox done there if you wanted
Oh,
to. There's all
let's
kinds
do
of
it.
things. Yes, all kinds of things you can do in that neighborhood. And so, well, when you're talking about destinations, maybe that come to mind, favorite ones, Africa will always be top of the list. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I've been to Europe so many times and I continuously want and I crave Europe. I
Yeah.
crave sitting in a little bistro in Paris. I crave having pizza in the squares in Rome. I crave the wine in parts of Spain and other. I just crave so much about Europe. However, when the trip that has had the most impact on me in a beautiful way was
Hmm.
Africa, and it was just learning, going to the apartheid museum in Johannesburg, to going on safari. I think I just learned so much about the animal kingdom, and I didn't even think I wanted to learn about all this. It was
Hmm.
something that I was able to do at the time, invited to go to, and it was spiritual. It connected me to the Mother Earth. It connected me to Africa, and I think about it all the time. Fortunately, I have some pictures up around my place that remind me all the time, but
Yeah.
I dream about Africa a lot and wanting to go back. But how about you? What are some destinations that really resonate with you that you think about? And yeah.
Yeah. I've been to I used to work for an airline. So
Hmm.
I have been so many places thanks to those travel benefits that they give you. And it was amazing because you just get to go anywhere you wanted to go as long as you had the time off and the money. It was fantastic. So I
How
have
about those
been,
buddy passes?
but I mean, they
I
were
wish you
pretty.
still worked for. Darn
me,
it.
me too sometimes, but not. I wish I didn't work for them. I wish I still had the buddy passes. How about?
Okay.
No, yeah, it was amazing, and I been to Europe, Greece, and like you said, Paris and London, and I have enjoyed myself in all of those places, and I find myself thinking about them constantly. And I think London is such a great, great, great city to visit and to just experience the wealth of culture there. So I think that has resonated with me. Oh, and Madrid. Madrid
Ooh.
is so beautiful. It is such a gorgeous city, like the architecture and sitting in the squares, drinking, sipping champagne and things of that nature. It's just opulence at its best. So I find that those places really resonate with me, but also my trips back to Puerto Rico have been some of my favorite trips that I've ever taken. Going and being with my family that I have there and really spending time with them and getting to know where that side of my family actually came from and the life that they lived was so it's fulfilling to me. It makes me feel connected to something bigger than myself. So I feel like my trips to Puerto Rico have been some of my favorites.
And travel for me has changed over the years. I mean, you just mentioned Puerto Rico, and I just heard a story on the news earlier today that said many Puerto Ricans are coming over to the mainland, if you will, right?
Okay.
Trying to rent cars, and they're actually being turned away because many of the people that work in these car rental places didn't ever get the memo that Puerto Rico is part of the United States. And
I-
so
mm.
we live in such a divided time right now. I know it's such ignorance on
Wow.
so many levels.
Yeah.
And so they're thinking of actually putting on the Puerto Rican identification an American ID on there that
Mhm.
says they are actually US citizens
And they can rent a car.
and they can rent a car and everything will be okay. But I also say that too because I feel I haven't gone overseas so much other than Mexico in the last several years. Okay, the pandemic,
Yeah.
but many trips, I think a lot has occurred in the world post pandemic. We've seen such a divide. And I know this show isn't a total political show at all, but we're talking about changes. And one of the things I think we've all had to consider, and I know we're going to talk about it with Ivan Quintanilla, our
Oh, I
guest, in
can't
a little
wait.
bit
Yeah.
about safety. It's something that I know has always been a factor to factor in when you take a trip, but now more than ever, I feel like you kind of have to do your research. We talk a lot on our other show about Tag's podcast about being your own health advocate. Now I feel like we also have to be our own advocate for our LGBTQ plus safety
Yeah.
status.
I could not agree more. It's something that is always in the back of my mind when I go anywhere, really, but especially when I visit a destination that is foreign to me, basically. I think that the more that you take into account what that culture is, that because it's completely different than your own, then you have to recognize the dangers that could be potentially be there and what that could mean for you as far as your LGBTQ plus identity, or even if that's something that you want to, a situation that you want to put yourself in, because again, it could be something where you don't even want to give that place your business or your money, because at the end of the day, money is cash is king, basically. So you have to make those decisions for yourself and say, is this culture worth me putting myself in a possibly precarious situation? And do I really want to support that type of bigotry? So, yeah, that's something we just have to
Especially
think about
as
nowadays.
people of color as well. I think we really
Oh,
have
wow.
to
Yeah.
keep that in mind. I remember you and I had drinks with a friend recently, and that friend and I had gone to Argentina, Buenos Aires, several
Yeah.
years ago. And we actually had a great trip, so much so that we want to go back. We've just decided that we want to revisit our Buenos Aires, Argentina excursion all over
I want to
again.
go.
Yes, absolutely. But one of the things that we talked about at that time, even with my friend, he is black, that he had a run in at a club at the time that we thought was pretty motivated by the fact that he was black, and it didn't go very well in this particular club.
Yeah.
Now, times have changed and he still wants to go, thank God, but it's something as people of color, we all kind of have to factor in and sort of think about. My African American friends also tell stories of going to Africa too. And
Oh,
the
really?
difference between the Afrikaners, and they have five different types of identities over in Africa. And you and I would be considered colored over there, actually,
Okay.
which is really interesting. And so, I just think it's one more thing to layer in when you're considering travel. Just now we have to really do our research, at least the current state that we are in right now.
Exactly. And I think that the more that you keep all of those things in mind, because we, at the end of the day, we do have to be respectful of other people's cultures, then the better off we'll be, right?
Absolutely. Now would be a great time to bring in our special guest, travel writer Ivan Quintanilla. Well, Cody and I could not be more happy to welcome our guest. You've been a guest on Tag's podcast. I'm talking about Ivan Quintanilla of the Traveling IQ. It's your podcast. I mean, it's not podcast. It's your blog, yes?
It's my blog. It's Traveling IQ on social media. And yeah, so I write for that, and I write about travel for a variety of different publications as well. And I'm so happy to be here.
Well, welcome.
Congratulations on this new podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We're really excited about it. Well, let's just kind of jump in. Travel seems to be back this year in particular in full force. Everyone this past summer seems to have gone to Europe. Are people just spending money again that you're noticing, or do you think there's like deals out there that you've seen from the beginning of the year till now?
I think people are definitely spending money. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I think travel right now tends to be a little bit expensive. Yeah. Air travel is specifically expensive right now compared to definitely a year ago and what it's been. I just think a lot of people who have the means and are able to, were cooped up for a really long time. And so it's still kind of people coming out of the pandemic and, having the desire to get out in the world and feeling like they were cooped up for too long. And I think a lot of the trips that are happening now were kind of fantasy trips that started forming in people's minds during the pandemic. So over the last 2 years, when people have been able to travel, and we forget, like, the whole COVID shutdown wasn't that long ago.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, how many trips did we all probably cancel that you thought you were going to go on and didn't end up going on?
Exactly. And it was only a year and a half, 2 years ago, where everybody was starting to get vaccinated and countries were starting to open up. And, it's just till recently, many countries in 2023 that have cut off the mask mandates, for example. So, all that is still pretty new for a lot of places. And I think people are just like eager to get out there.
Yeah.
Wow. So that is so interesting. So what are some of the hot spots that you see going on right now to travel to? What are the most beautiful and expensive and like the places that everybody wants to go to? Where are those destinations?
Okay. Well, there's a lot. But I think there's like the perennial favorites that everyone loves, like Puerto Vallarta.
Right.
Mexico City continues to be really popular for LGBTQ travel. But I was just in Thailand this year, and that is kind of has opened up this year, and it's such an LGBTQ friendly place, and I know a lot of people.
I love Bangkok.
Yeah, and they've started replanning trips there, and a lot of. Bangkok specifically, but Thailand in general is really welcoming to LGBTQ travelers year round. And it has the kind of climate. Right now it's their rainy season, so it's a little less desirable to go there right now. But in general, it's hot year round. You can go during our winter and it's still really nice there. But they've also have very specific events. Like I happened to be there in April, and there was like a whole circuit party, and it was their first year that they were able to do it after COVID.
Wow.
So it was a really international crowd, and Thailand continues to be one of the most LGBTQ friendly countries in Europe. So for many other people in other LGBT friendly countries in Asia, So for many people in other Asian countries, they really look to travel to Thailand to be able to party and do their thing.
Express themselves.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
There's a great water festival, too, in Bangkok that happens every year where people literally throw like water bottles, buckets of water on you. It can be really sexy.
Oh, no. My hair, honey.
Well, but think of all the wet T-shirts and the clothes that come off.
So that's when I was there.
Oh,
It's
my
in
God.
April.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought it was around that time.
Yeah, it's called Songkran, and
Songkran,
it's
yeah.
their Thai New Year, and it's also a Buddhist water festival. That's how it started, and the city goes crazy. It's just like people are walking around with like water guns everywhere, and I had wet feet for 3 days. I mean that part they don't tell you that part. That part's not as enjoyable.
Right.
But
Wear your flip flops and
absolutely get
Yeah.
a pair of Crocs and wear those around
Yes,
town.
Crocs.
Well, I know, I
Crocs,
love
too.
Crocs, right? Well, I mean, we have to talk about seasonal travel, and what does that really even mean these days when you think about global warming? I mean, you mentioned Puerto Vallarta,
Right.
and it always seemed before anywhere from November to April was the season, but now I keep going back. My sister has a condo there, and people are pushing it all the way into August. A friend of mine lives there and said the boys are still coming in August. And so, have you noticed a shift in what season is? I mean, there are places, Mykonos will always be like a 2-month marker, and that's
Right.
all they got. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think as we've kind of experienced this summer, where it's been exceptionally hot in a lot of places, it's happening. It's happening everywhere, and it's happening in a lot of cities. So I think for some people, you think, I mean, I could be hot at home, or I can be hot somewhere fabulous.
Yeah.
So I would rather be hot somewhere
Good point.
fabulous by a pool.
I hear that.
Yeah.
So in
With a
that-
drink.
Yeah. So in that sense, I don't really have a problem going to kind of off-season places that are too hot, as long as it's kind of a beach and pool destination. I wouldn't necessarily want to explore a city center where I'm walking around, in Thailand, for example,
Yeah.
where it can be really hot.
Yeah.
And you're going to these temples, and for many of them, you can't wear tank tops, and you can't wear shorts because it's a Buddhist temple, and you have to
Yes.
be respectful. So you're wearing some version of long pants and some version of at least a t-shirt, and it is so hot. It is
Yeah.
excruciating.
Yeah, Athens too. If you ever tried the Acropolis, it can just be brutal in dead summer, and there's no shade, and you're just So
That's insane. Wow.
Yeah.
You got to be mindful.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you mentioned finances, and
Yes.
to people are people getting deals. If you want deals, definitely that is one way to do it. Is to travel to places when it's not the high season there, or it's a little bit of the shoulder season, so it's not where everybody else is there, and you can definitely get better deals at that time.
Oh, cool. See, I was going to ask you about deals and traveling on a budget, so I'm so glad that you brought it up. Do you mind expanding a little bit on that? What are your favorite destinations to get a good deal?
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, definitely every place has gotten so expensive.
Yeah.
And just like we've seen it here definitely in New York, but in the U.S. with prices going up, the same has happened in Europe and in many other spots. I mentioned Thailand. Thailand, it is expensive to get there for Americans because it's a long flight. But
Right.
once you get there, you really can have a great level of luxury for not a lot of money. You can also spend a lot of money if that's what you
Of
choose to
course,
do.
yeah.
I mean, there are options, but
They'll take it,
She's
right?
got range.
but like food isn't crazy.
Food is
and-
not crazy at all, and it's
Yeah.
delicious.
right. So good.
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me. Definitely, I would say Mexico and Central America continue to be a little more inexpensive.
Okay.
Certain Caribbean islands, especially if you go slightly off season and you go to more kind of local hangouts than the big touristy spots, can still be a little less expensive. And just, I would say, just especially when you're traveling outside of the U.S., try to find where the locals go, because that tends to be a little less expensive and oftentimes has more flavor.
That's a good tip. I
That's
love
a really
that.
good tip, because even for our Tags podcast, we had somebody DM us the other day and saying, aside from just looking on websites that can be outdated, how do you find out about nightlife? And I said, really, if you could talk to locals in general, or find people, social media has always got the up-to-date on what's going on, and you can usually find deals in that regard.
Yeah, I always say I don't need, but I like places to have at least one gay bar. If
Yeah.
I can find one gay bar, go to your local gay bar the first night you're there,
and
talk to the bartender and strike up a conversation and become friends with them, and you will get the lowdown of most anything you need. And from there, you'll meet people who will hopefully be kind and show you where to go. So I still very much, I love a good gay bar, and that's where I get a lot of my information.
Our safe space, that's right.
Well, speaking of safety, we got to talk about that. I mean, this year alone, so many anti-LGBTQ laws been enacted, not just here, but across the globe. What's some things and places that we could consider going to where we're going to feel safe? I mean, nothing's 100%, but and where should we avoid, perhaps?
So, unfortunately, this year the HRC issued a national state of emergency for LGBTQ people in America for the first time ever. So we oftentimes think of where we're going to be welcomed in other places, but we're having some issues within our own country.
Right.
So we just have to kind of raise the level of our awareness everywhere. And I think it doesn't mean you can't go to a place, but you just have to be aware of what the local laws are. And sometimes now in our country, that now changes from state to state. Mm-hmm. So the way things are being broken up. So HRC actually has a place on their website where they list each state's LGBTQ laws or discriminatory laws.
Okay.
So that's a good resource within the U.S. The State Department has an LGBTQ travel portal in their website where they talk about the laws of foreign countries. So when you're traveling abroad, that's a good place to go. And otherwise, I would just definitely do a little bit of research. There's still 60, I think currently 64 countries where being homosexual is illegal.
Right.
And some of those are as close to like Jamaica. It's still it's still illegal to be homosexual in Jamaica. And that's a place that's so close to the US that we travel to so often. And oftentimes as travelers, we're really privileged if we're staying in resorts, like they don't mess with us, but it's important to know what the laws are and also that we don't put local people at risk by kind of flaunting ourselves in ways that would probably be safe for us, but not for other people that we may be with.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
That is so wise. Thank you for that. So carrying on with safety, I've been traveling alone before, and I loved it. It was such a transformative experience, and I want to know some safety tips for traveling alone, and also if you're scared to travel alone, what would you suggest to people if they're scared to travel alone?
Well, I think traveling alone is fantastic, and it's great to not have to kind of change your itinerary to match anyone else's wishes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's lovely.
That is a plus.
Yes.
What I would say if you're concerned about traveling alone is just be really aware of where you're going, and be aware of, like I said before, the laws and the rules of whatever specific place. Another great option for someone who may be traveling alone but is scared to travel alone or doesn't quite feel as comfortable is to join an LGBTQ travel group where you can travel alone but still be within members of our community.
I like
so
that.
smart.
Yeah. So when I went to Thailand, I went by myself.
Okay.
But I joined a gay travel group from Out Adventures is the name of the company.
Oh, yes.
They do like 50 different tours a year to, all over the world, and they do several to Thailand. So I didn't really want, I was going to go alone. I want a free plane ticket to Thailand, which was random.
Hey.
Throw that away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got this free plane ticket, and I was like, now what? It was just so far.
Yeah.
And I kept on trying to plan this trip on my own, and it was freaking me out. So I found that was a great compromise to travel alone within a group. And they also planned everything, and that was really lovely.
Yeah.
So I would say look into that, and especially if you are interested in traveling to places that may not be as LGBTQ friendly, like if you want to go to Morocco or Egypt or places like that have more questionable laws.
Right.
It's really helpful to seek out the advice of someone who is an expert in that area. And there are many LGBTQ travel companies that do travel to these places and have a history and experience with them, and you could feel safe.
Cool.
I would also say retreats are popping up all over the place. There's a lot of LGBTQ retreats, yoga retreats, if you happen to like that.
Yes.
And they'll plan, some are looser. We're going to have somebody on the show talking about retreats.
Yeah.
Some are very itinerary specific, and you're doing yoga all day long. And then others have built-in free time for you to do your own thing. But at least you're meeting people and doing something that you love. And I'm sure there's all kinds of ones beyond yoga, but that you could look into.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And some of them that are maybe not even LGBTQ specific,
Right, yeah.
but, I think many people that would go to a yoga retreat
Yeah.
are going to be relatively open-minded and progressive in their thinking, so you would feel really safe and you would feel comfortable meeting them.
Cooking would be a good one too.
Cooking, yes.
There's a TV show that I was watching where they taught you're in the kitchen with these chefs and you're in this remote part of France and cooking like amazing French food and staying. Yeah, I know. I was like, I want to do this. And so, I mean, but you're learning something, maybe not LGBT, but I'm sure cooks are not, aspiring cooks are not going to be anti-LGBT. So, or you could always inquire, I'm sure too.
Absolutely. And I think it's okay to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of the reasons that I do recommend sometimes joining an LGBTQ travel group is because they've already asked these questions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can feel safe and comfortable just showing up.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're more interested in doing your own research, ask.
Yeah.
And most tourist kind of centered places will be very welcoming because ultimately we're not the first gay people who have traveled there.
That's right.
Well, we have to talk about something totally different,
Okay.
but everybody seems to be wanting a destination wedding, particularly in LGBTQ land. And I mean, I keep talking about Puerto Vallarta, but I know it's a great place, and near it, Nayarit has some great destinations. I can always let people know that I just went to a great wedding on this space. But how do you feel about destination weddings? Is it super expensive and crazy that's just a thought too, because what do you think if you're invited to a destination wedding, question for both of you, do you still owe them a gift?
I think it depends.
Isn't it enough that you're
I don't think
going
it
out
is.
there?
Absolutely. I think so. They may not think so.
Right.
I
Yeah.
am the gift, darling.
I think it should be in Miss Manners, but I don't know.
Yeah, I've been to some, and I love destination weddings when it gives you a good excuse to go somewhere with hopefully people that you already love.
Yeah, right.
What I don't like about destination weddings is when there's an expectation that you have to go, because not everybody has the finances
Yeah.
to be able to go to these fabulous places all the time.
At that particular moment in time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, I've never had a destination wedding, or a wedding for that matter. But if I did, I would.
I'm
be,
on the guest list.
All right, you're on the guest list. You're gonna be the groom.
Thank you.
Nice.
Oh, I have 6 carats, darling.
All right, sure. So I would just say, great idea. Some places, I just was in Los Cabos earlier this year. And Los Cabos is actually making quite a push for the LGBTQ travel market, and they have a really thriving destination wedding circuit there, and it's a very beautiful place. And there's a company called gaycabo.com that will help plan the weddings, and the resorts there have become really kind of savvy with same-sex weddings.
Oh. And always Mexico is a little bit more affordable, and who doesn't want to go to Mexico, right? So,
I always love Mexico.
Yeah.
Puerto Vallarta is one of my favorite
Oh,
places.
yeah.
Oh, for sure. Kind of piggybacking on that, what are some of the more romantic places that you would suggest for couples out there that want to have a romantic experience with their partner?
Sure. I would say Cape Town, South Africa, is an amazing place.
Wow.
And I was there about a little over a year ago, and it is such a beautiful city. It's
by the water.
It's by the water. There's Table Mountain. You could basically see from anywhere in the city. So it's got the mountains on one side. It's got the coast on the other side. It's very multicultural. And I think South Africa, speaking of safety, South Africa within Africa is by far the most progressive and the safest country for LGBTQ travelers in Africa currently. They've actually, apartheid just ended in 1994, which is kind of crazy to think how recently that was. So what happened with that is they were then forced to recreate a new constitution, which was instituted in 1996. So in doing that, they built in these anti-discrimination policies into their constitution, and that included LGBTQ+.
Yeah.
So at the time, it was one of the first countries to ever kind of enshrine that into their constitution. So Cape Town is gorgeous. I would definitely go there.
And if you could plan a safari on top of that,
Exactly.
how more romantic could that be?
I'm ready.
Oh,
Let's
safari.
go.
Yeah.
Let's go. I mean, if you're going to go that far, you can't go to Africa, South Africa, or anywhere in Africa and not do a safari.
No.
I would say. So that's definitely one. Canary Islands, I think, is also a really amazing place.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't been, but I've heard about that.
Yeah, so there are these islands. They're off the coast of northern Africa, but they're part of Spain.
Yes.
So it's Spain,
Right.
but it's off the coast of northern Africa. They're really every island it's a whole series of islands, and everyone is different. But they're kind of these volcanic islands. Some are kind of desert-like, and they're very gay friendly, especially Gran Canaria and Tenerife are the two largest islands, and they have thriving gay populations and culture. So that's a kind of a unique place that I don't think everybody thinks of.
Yeah.
That would be a really romantic place to go.
Cool. And that's where I hear all the Europeans go to. So
That's where all the European porn stars go
Hey.
film their
that's
porn.
how I know.
Yes. You follow porn stars on Instagram. They're always in the Canary
I am
Islands.
there.
There it is.
Yeah.
Makes sense now.
This isn't really a travel question as much as a destination. And Of a Certain Age is the name of the podcast. I have a lot of friends that are talking about retirement and where they want to settle down and where they're going to get the most bang for their buck. Can you just talk a little bit about I mean, it always seemed like in California, Palm Springs was the spot, right? We keep talking about Puerto Vallarta. That's where I'd like mine as an expat if I could do
Yeah, me
that
too.
someday. But do you have any ideas on where people are considering in terms of retirement?
Yeah, I mean, I think also there's a financial aspect of it too. As places become more popular, it becomes more expensive. Like Puerto Vallarta is so popular
Right.
that for some people it kind of defeats the purpose of having a cheaper place to retire to.
Yeah. Florida has its own
Florida
issues.
has its own issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
But that's where everybody used to want to go back.
It was. Not anymore.
I don't think so. And then weather too.
Of course. So I think when I was last here, we spoke about Merida in
yes.
Mexico,
And I still haven't gone.
That is a spot that is popular enough. It's very safe, and it has a LGBTQ nightlife and community, but is not as expensive as many other places. So
Right.
that's a place that I would look at. I have not been, but I've heard Panama City
yeah.
is becoming really popular with expats, and you can, your money can really go very far there, and you can, buy a brand new condo and some luxury
Lush.
building for nowhere near what that would cost you in the States. So those are just two options that pop into mind.
I love it. I love it.
Me too.
So practice your Spanish, boys.
Yeah, I know. Really, I am. Yes.
Kind of switching gears here a little bit. I was really curious about cruises because I've never been on a cruise before, and I really want to go on one. What are some of the benefits of going on a cruise and just having that experience?
We'll talk about like built-in community and
Okay.
ease, especially if you go on an LGBTQ cruise. I mean, you show up, you unpack once, you don't go anywhere. The ship takes you from place to place. You can choose to get off the ship if you want, or you can just hang out. So I think there's a lot of options. There's a lot of ease to cruising.
Okay.
That
Yes,
I love.
I heard that.
Me too.
And I do think if you go like on a LGBTQ specific cruise, talking about traveling by yourself, like you have 3,000 to 5,000 of your closest brand new friends available to you for friendship and community and whatever else you might want.
Hey.
So I think it
Well,
works
you and
really
I
well.
were on the Vakaya cruise line, not
Yes.
once but twice. We were
Yes.
talking offline before we started the show. So much fun. That particular brand I love a lot, the Vakaya brand, because I really think it's really inclusive to so many age groups.
Yes.
And I just couldn't help but meet so many different people and friendly people from around the globe. And I just love that. The entertainment's great.
Yeah.
So can't say enough about Vakaya.
Yeah, I love them. And I've had a chance to travel with them a few times, and I've written about my travel with them a few times. And most recently, I wrote about this Caribbean cruise that happened in February of 2023. And the thing that I love most about them, there's many things, but is the friendliness quotient is so high.
Yeah.
The people are so lovely, and it's so easy to meet people. And like you said, the ages are really varied.
Right.
So, there are some youngins, if that's what you like, but it definitely really spans not only ages, but body types.
Right.
That's fantastic.
So, which I think in and of itself just makes it more open and friendly to everyone.
Right.
There are some very traditionally chiseled people, and that's wonderful, but there's also a lot of other kinds.
Lesbians
I was
as
just gonna
well.
ask that.
Yeah,
I was gonna say.
right. It's there's another brand out there too. I don't see it as much on that one, but on Vakaya, I can truly see the diversity and the different types of from LGBTQ. So that's really nice.
Yeah, and they've actually worked it into their programming, which, there's a little bit of like, if you build it, they will come. From the beginning, they really sought out to reach out to the entire LGBTQ spectrum and our allies. So they actually reach out to straight allies to join their friends, and they have programming specifically for women and specifically for trans and non-binary members. And so people can feel like there are things specifically for them on this cruise.
Cool. I gotta do it. I can't wait.
Well, this has been really good, Ivan Quintanilla.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Our
so
pleasure.
People can go to travelingiq.com
Yes.
for everything, or just list all your ways
So-
to follow.
Yeah, sure. So most of my articles that I write for other publications, I do connect through travelingiq.com. So you can always go there and see my travel articles that I've written for multiple publications, and follow me on Instagram at travelingiq.
Definitely
Love it.
will.
Thank you. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, Cody, does that conversation with Ivan make you want to get on a plane like tomorrow?
Or today. It was fantastic. I can't wait for my next destination trip.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Me too. Yeah. I'm talking with a friend of mine in LA, and there's a company called Out Traveler, and we may take this June river cruise that goes through Spain and Lisbon. So kind of excited about that and exploring the wines of that region. Anything you're kind of looking forward to?
Well, besides our trip to Mexico, which may have passed by the time this is out, but other than that, the next destination that I know that I'm going to be taking is France for a really good friend of mine's 40th birthday.
Lovely. I love France. Yes.
Oh my God,
very
it's so
cool.
good.
Nice. Okay. Well, we want everyone. We are here every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And well, next week on Of a Certain Age, we are welcoming Bill Gross of Sage to the show. It's a really good conversation of our elder population who are still intimate. Really good conversation. Looking forward to that. If wherever you listen to us, we want you to rate and review us. Give us 5 stars. We're a new show, and it will only help get the word out of a Certain Age podcast.
That's right. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Of a Certain Age Pod.
What are we doing, Cody?
We're
We're
living
living out
out
loud.
loud.
Your life can be